Yep, that's right. Another computer. This one is a real piece of work, though. I really, I mean, even for a discount, I did not pay that. I did not pay anywhere close to that. Even for a discount, I still cannot believe that I even wasted my time with this, but it's pretty generic looking. The case actually doesn't really look too bad if you just look at the front. Sprint. That's that small system builder that the last machine came from. I actually paid quite a bit more for it than I did for this, but once you start really looking at this case, you realize just how much of a cheap piece of crap it really is. And you see all these red spots all over it. Yeah, I don't know if you can tell. But yeah, it cut me up pretty good. So, that was brilliant. And you know it's good when this is the power supply that was in it. Check this thing out. This is so generic that this is the only sticker on the entire thing that really says anything about it. I mean, we know that it was probably made in 2004. The system, anyway. I know the power supply was, because it says right on it that it was manufactured in April of 2004. But there's no markings on this power supply anywhere. What a generic piece of crap. And look at this. Look at how just awful this looks. Somebody must have manhandled this pretty badly. But it really doesn't help that it's cheap, flimsy pop can metal. You know, like most of the cases of the time period were, if you didn't spend a whole lot of money. What really blows my mind is that people did. They spent a whole lot of money on this really nice computer, and then they ran out of steam by the time they got to the power supply and the case. And usually they just bought some cheap generic case and used whatever cheap generic power supply was installed in it. But this is a system builder, you know, I'd expect a little bit better out of them. Even in 2004. I'm going to flip it around here. Okay, you can see it's fairly unassuming from the back. Thunderbird 850. Wait a minute, does that say 2002? That might be 2002. You can see a little bit more evidence of blood donation there, but yeah, no, that might be a newer power supply, so it wasn't the system builder that did that. It's not usually a good sign when you replace the power supply after 2 years. It's using the case I/O plate, which is obviously not quite correct, but I'm guessing that this board did not come with an I/O plate, and that's why they used the one for the case. 2 serial ports is pretty common. 2 USB, maybe not so much, but this is even 2002. It was starting to become more common to have more than just one. So looks like a bunch of expansion cards are borrowed from this, which is kind of unfortunate. It's got 2 modems. I really don't know why it's got 2 modems, but you can quite clearly see that it's got 2 modems. That one in the bottom there, that's a modem. Dual modem, no less. Are they really both dual modems? I don't think they're both dual modems. I think you plug your telephone into one. It's a pass-through for your telephone. So it's more like 2 modems, but anyway. And a capture card, which is pretty neat. So the big thing that's probably the neatest out of it all, which you can't really see, is if we look in there, it's dual CPU. There's 2 heatsinks in there. So let me pop the actual cover off. Here we have a look inside the beast. I don't know, I can't really see any discernible markings on that CD-ROM drive, which I'm pretty sure is just a CD-ROM. It doesn't look like it's anything particularly special. I think this is a newer floppy drive, because the faceplate was white, where the rest of the case is beige. It just looks like one of those newer floppy drives, so that's probably been replaced at some point. Probably is the only thing in here that actually works. You can see that it is indeed a dual CPU system. There's 2 sticks of RAM. Now, what are these? I'm kind of curious. It's probably like 64 megs maximum. What was that? Well, that's 256. Huh. Which it's not focusing on for whatever reason. Come on, you piece of garbage, focus. There we go. 256. So what's this? Well, that's generic. That's also 256. It's got 512 megs of RAM. That's not bad. Even for $8, that's a pretty decent haul with the floppy drive and the CD-ROM. I don't hold out much hope of that capture card working. It's an ISA capture card that looks like it's meant for ATI systems. So it's probably had an ATI video card in it originally. It's got an AGP slot. So that's pretty nice. I don't know what this is. It's labeled CD in. Well, it's plugged into the CD in there. But I really don't know what the point of this is. Unless this is something somebody modified. Because I'm guessing that this is the thing that's supposed to plug into the back of the CD-ROM drive. But you can't plug that into that one. Because it'd be this one. Which, are all those wires actually even hooked up? No, not really. So I don't know how that's supposed to work. But, it's there. And there's this one, which is the output. That's an ISA modem, believe it or not. Now, this motherboard is actually extremely interesting. And it's even more interesting than I thought it was when I picked this up. Because I figured, okay, it's probably a dual Pentium 3 system. Well, there's more than meets the eye here, because it is not a dual Pentium 3 system. And you're looking at me going, well, gee, what can it possibly be? Is it a dual Pentium 1 system? Those are 2 Intel CPU heatsinks. So it's obviously an Intel CPU. Well, for starters, you can see bad capacitor plague all over this thing. So I really kind of doubt that it works. But if you look down here at the model number, you can see this is an 8-bit BP6. And the 8-bit BP6 is notable, at least in my brief research, for being the only board, or at least being the first board, to support symmetric multiprocessing, SMP, with Intel Celeron CPUs. The consequence of that is that it only technically supports Intel Celeron CPUs. So this is a dual Celeron system. I think you can run Pentium 3s on these, but you cannot run them in symmetric multiprocessing. So since it's got 2, it's obviously a dual Celeron machine. Which is odd. I can't really envision that there was much of a market for this, but evidently there was, because people speak very highly of these, because they're also very overclockable. So, I guess it's a decent, cheap option if you want dual CPUs. Because remember, back in the day, we didn't have multi-core chips, at least not for the most part. This was 2004, so I mean, the Pentium 4 existed, and I think they came out with hyper-threading by this time. But it wasn't a true dual-core CPU. So the only way to get 2 physical cores was to have 2 physical CPUs, which is why we end up with this. So the other interesting thing about this, you might have noticed, is that there are 4 IDE slots. There are 2 IDE controllers. There's the one that's built into the Intel 440 chipset, and there's an outboard one, which I believe is that chip right there. The High Point HPT 366, which also supplies 2 of its own. So you can have 8 drives in this machine. Not that you can put 8 drives in this case, but that's not bad for what's basically a pedestrian CPU. You could have a pretty cheap server out of this. So, what I'm going to do, because I can just about guarantee that this power supply is junk, so I'm not even going to worry about it for now. You might fire it up later and see if it does anything. Is I'm going to grab this one on the bottom, which is a sparkle power. I'm going to grab that and hook this up and see if it actually happens to do anything. And if it does, I can get a monitor and a keyboard and a video card and see if we can get this thing to do anything interesting. There's no hard drive, which really kind of ticks me off, because I'm pretty sure it had one when it was donated, but because of privacy reasons, they have to pull those out now. So, I think it's kind of a travesty, really. But, on the other hand, there's a lot of bad actors out there that would end up using that for negative purposes. It's just kind of unfortunate. Before I mess around and waste time with a video card and peripherals and all this other mess, I want to see if it's going to do anything at all. So here we go. It does. That's impressive. That's a no video beep, so looks like I'm going to be getting a video card and a monitor. That is actually really impressive. I expected it to do nothing at all. Okay. Now, we're not out of the woods yet. There could still be a myriad of problems. I mean, who knows? Let's see, where's the switch? Yeah, it doesn't like that video card. That could be an issue, because it means I'm going to have to find an AGP card. Unless it just doesn't like the fact that, maybe there's a RAM problem. Let me do some investigation here. Okay, so it's been a little bit. I tried a PCI video card, that's what you saw in the last clip, and that didn't work. So I had to go and dig around and find an AGP one. I just found this random one. I don't really know what it is, but it will fit in that socket, so I've left it on. I did have it working for a little bit. Let's see if it still works. You can see the front panel stuff. I also have gone ahead and hooked up the optical drive. Oh, now it's definitely upset. Yeah, that's what it did last time, too. So we'll power cycle it. And hopefully it'll work now. Or maybe it just won't work at all, because I've left it sitting here. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is a problem. You can see, I'm going to try and set this. Yeah, it's set up. So, I'm not sure why all of these aren't set to auto, but anyway, so that's all good. But, you can see it is indeed a pair of Celerons. They're 466. At least in theory, they're both 466. I'm going to go ahead, and I'm actually going to turn this on. I want to see what it's going to do in response to that. And I'm going to set this up to my liking. Although I didn't really do any changes to it. So, we'll go ahead and we'll save and exit. We'll see what it happens to do. I don't think it's going to be too happy. Oh, it worked. Cool. But I want to go back into setup here. See, it says one processor, which is kind of interesting. So here's the high point thing, which it actually saw the CD-ROM for. I wanted to go into setup. I would have liked to go into setup. See, green AGP PCI ISA system. And I want to... Where is that? There was a thing in here that showed the CPU temperatures and things like that. Was it on this page and I just didn't see it? No. I'll set that to UDMA. Ah, there it is. So you can see, I don't know how accurate that really is. I wouldn't say it's terrifically accurate. No, I didn't like that. Did not like that. So if I power cycle it, does it work now? Yeah, so it's a little glitchy. But, I mean, that's not to be unexpected for a system of this age. Huh. I don't know, I don't think it's gonna work. Optical drive ejects. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna boot to that optical drive. I'm gonna have to hook it up to the onboard. Alright. Screw finding a new cable. Let's do it this way and see what happens. Of course not. That's really annoying. It's not like it's not right there. Well, I don't really think the drive is... Well, maybe it is, but I got it plugged into the actual board. When in doubt, just rip the pin out. Because it doesn't need it. So, anyway, I don't recommend doing that. But what I do want to do, if this thing will cooperate long enough to actually do this, I don't think this optical drive is really working that well. Is I would like that. Let's see if I can load that. Okay, well I wasn't able to get that to run, but I was able to get this to run. And I'm not sure if it's really seeing both CPUs, or if one of them is just not running because it's not the right CPU type, and that's why every once in a while I get a CPU problem. I don't know. I'm going to have to do some investigation on that. But the system itself seems to be working, so I don't think I'm going to screw around with that too much longer. I've got other things to do. I want to see if that power supply works. Alright. Well, I've got a jumper to turn on. It's plugged in. Let's see what it does. You gotta be kidding me. Okay, that's actually pretty impressive. Here's a look inside it. Wow, what a piece of junk. Look at the tininess of those heat sinks. Well, I'll give it this much credit. There's no blown capacitors in there. They're TPOs, so really it's only a matter of time. I'm not really going to invest too much or care about this power supply, really. I don't even know what it's rated for because I can't actually tell. It doesn't say anything on it. Unless I'm just missing it. There's no manufacturer or anything. It's just a cheap, generic power supply. You could see spaces where there would be other, looks like other capacitors that are just not installed. And other things. So, yeah, they really cheapened out on this. Oh, whatever. I've got other things to do, so I think I'm going to move on from this. Sprint. Dual Celeron thingy. I don't know, the case is pretty much worthless, but the hardware components I could probably get some use out of.